Hey folks, it's Eugene. I'm the Dungeon Master for the Long Strange Cantrip D&D campaign. We play a 5e campaign every other week on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/longstrangecantrip. And you can follow us there to catch us live, chat along, and participate in the sessions. Also see links to our Discord where you can take part in the creation of NPCs and sharing funny memes and whatever it is that people love to do on Discord, which we also love to do on Discord. You can also follow us on this YouTube channel, Long Strange Cantrip, the one you're watching, where we will have full episodes, recaps like this one, DM notes, and other content related to the game. We're just getting started with the campaign, and I'm very excited to present this, the recap of the second episode of the March of Progress campaign. Maybe it should be the Long Strange Cantrip presents the March of Progress. Anyway, we'll figure that out later. For now, the recap. The second session was eventful. Our party began on the deck of the RNS Coltung, which they had just boarded after averting disaster at its launch for its maiden voyage by catching some would-be saboteurs, people who were going to throw tomatoes at the various foreign dignitaries as they arrived. And having boarded, the party enjoyed a few hours of calm sailing and peaceful bobbing in the open waters around Flint as they went out to harbor and enjoyed the party. They were surrounded by escort vessels and all sorts of They were surrounded by escort vessels and more immediately surrounded on the deck of the Coltung by various dignitaries and big muckety-mucks dressed all in their finest to pay their respects to this fine ship, the finest in the Missouri fleet, and in fact, the finest anywhere in the world, most likely, and to perhaps get a glance of their king, King Aodon, who is also on board, having just ushered this vessel into service for the Missouri Naval Service. The guests were marveling at the ship itself and also the dining room, which was also the capacitor for this ship, which runs on a mixture of steam and magic and arcane energy. And they were watching the arcs of energy jump across the capacitor and its glass top as they were sitting there eating the finest Missouri delicacies served by Ume and Egberticus, who were, of course, in charge of cuisine. While the band played jaunty tunes on deck. Ren, who is not one for seafaring, was having trouble keeping the canapes down, while Ekthos comforted him as he heaved over the side of the ship, not to paint too gory a picture. Brachus did his best, being literally bored to death, as Stover Delft, his boss at the Royal Homeland Constabulary, kept ushering him around from one interminable conversation with a stuffy city official to the next. Meanwhile, Egberticus and Ume coordinated the dinner service while doing their best to enjoy the view. And of course, Dipnip sort of stayed off to the side, contemplating life itself. Egberticus also looked wistfully at his homeland, which he spotted briefly off deck and back at the mainland. After a brief run-in with King Aodon, who passed by the group coincidentally as they were standing on deck, and complaining to his chief advisor, Harkover Lee, about some Bayborn food poisoning, something about them not being pleased with the king's excursion to sea, Ume had a run-in themselves. While trying to save a toppling tray of wolf fillets and chicory, one of Egberticus and Ume's specialties, which they were about to serve to the guests, Ume bumped Lorna Elk, who is, of course, Ekthos and Ren's superior at the Ministry of Learning and Arcana's Bureau of Modern Contraptions and Utilities. She was not pleased whatsoever. She spilled her drink all over her gown, and, of course, as the director, she was on the Central Planning Committee for the event, a very important function, so she was now not presentable and completely beside herself. Her evening was now positively ruined. and even Jeff Massard, the ship's designer from Danor, did some parlor tricks and with a flick of his wand turned her drink frosty. Couldn't placate Lorna. She was absolutely inconsolable. So Egberticus tried to defend his friend, and Ren ultimately intervened, casting Charm Person on his boss, Lorna. That decision would later come back to bite him. But first, Stover informed the gang that they were falling asleep on the job because Brachus had earlier helped Duchess Ethelyn to a room where she could literally fall asleep, take a nap to avoid the scene, which she was not at all keen to take part in. But of course, Duchess Ethelyn was supposed to be back on deck for her brother, King Eodon's big speech right at the height of the evening's festivities. But now she was nowhere to be found. The king was minutes away from making his speech, and she was going to ruin the event just as Harkover Lee had predicted she might try to do and asked the party to prevent her from doing. Typical Duchess Ethelyn stunt. So while Egberticus and Ume continued on their culinary duties, the other four headed below decks. There they were greeted by Duchess Ethelyn's handmaiden, Sokana Rel, a captivating, faintly fey-looking woman. Sokana informed the party that the Duchess would be out shortly, that she was still getting ready in her room, but the gang was not satisfied with her somewhat obvious prevarication. Brachus in particular, not the most patient even in the best of times, was starting to lose his cool and finally pounded on the door so hard that it flew open. And then the gang discovered that the Duchess had apparently escaped out of a window. At that point, Sokana wasted no time in attacking, along with an assassin who emerged from the shadows. The party dispatched the assassin and began to search for Sokana, who disappeared in a puff of smoke, casting Misty Step. At that time, Dipnip went above deck to alert everybody, including, of course, Egberticus and Ume, but also Stover Delft and Jeff Massard, to say the ship appeared to be subject to sabotage, this time on the high seas, not just at port. So before long, Sokana and two others were discovered in the ship's lowest deck, attempting to sabotage the furnace, which would, of course, cause the ship to explode. Brachus cleaved through the enemies with huge, devastating axe blows, chopping people in two and pinning arms to walls. Sokana tried to escape again, but Ren turned into a panther, Ume and bit into her throat. Ume shot a piercing arrow that stopped her in her tracks right before she was about to jump off the ship. So Sokana was caught, but the Duchess, of course, had escaped. With Massard's help, the group managed to release enough pressure to prevent the boiler and thereby the entire ship from exploding. And while everyone was a little shaken up and the guests took note of a disturbance, the grave nature of that disturbance was not revealed to them, and a much more serious disaster was, of course, averted thanks to the party. The king still had the opportunity to make his big fancy speech in which he announced that he was ushering in a new era of peace and reconciliation between Rhysr and Danor, an era that would be punctuated by the king's marriage to a Danoran 1 year hence. He asked for an end to this pointless, wasteful escalation of bloodshed and recurring cycle of warfare between these countries, in favor of the joint betterment of both countries on a new path together. And his sister, of course, was absent for the speech, after all. His sister was absent for the speech, of course, albeit apparently for reasons far more nefarious than mere sibling rivalry. Oh, and Lorna Elk, of course, totally fired Ren and Ekthos for A, trying to mentally dominate her with the charm spell, and B, generally consorting with a reckless kobold such as Ume. So they're looking for work. Now, on their return to shore, the party was asked if they could follow up on their work to unravel the events of the Coltung's launch. This evening, however, they were free to enjoy a relaxing drink or two. They slept soundly that night. My party must stop watching at this point. All except for Brachus. His dreams brought the same recurring vision, the same nightmare that seemed to come more frequently of late. A vision of his former commander, General Crunt, challenging Brachus' so-called heroism during the Yarosal War and demanding atonement for his past sins. Morning brought relief for Brachus and rejuvenation for others, and soon they were off to Stover Delph's office at the Royal Homeland Constabulary to find out exactly what happened and why that fateful evening aboard the RNS Coltung. Truly a 3-hour tour. So that was episode 2. The party had its first major battle in which it faced off against some foes who were trying to sabotage this huge leviathan of a ship, and the party succeeded. We'll see what happens next. As always, you can catch new episodes on twitch.tv/longstrangecantrip every other week. Follow us there for the schedule, and you can catch recaps, DMs, notes, and other contents here on YouTube at the Long Strange Cantrip, which you're watching and should follow if you like this. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. As I said, please follow us on Twitch and YouTube if you want to see more. And regardless, if you do see more, I'll be seeing you then.